It is football and other F words. My name is Zach Lyons. You can follow me on X at F Words Pod. He's Mike Herndon. You can follow him on X at Mike Herndon NFL. Are you broadcasting from the office or are you broadcasting from from like your business office or your home office?
Home office, home office. We
Okay,
don't we
got a
don't
lot of
technically
decorating to do
have
here.
a brick and mortar office, so we're
Okay.
all remote. But all of us are based in Texas now.
It
So
looks like a conference room right now, so you got a lot of work to do in this home office. You got to put up some stuff.
oh, we're still in boxes. I mean, it's a complete mess over here. So y'all are lucky. I've got my computer and everything together to
I
be
was
on here.
wondering if I was going to get a text saying, can we push it off till Thursday or Friday? I still don't know which box all my stuff's in.
Yeah, I had to keep the computer stuff out. In the truck with me at all times. But
The
hey,
well, we got a lot to talk about. But
and
first,
I
I'll say congratulations to the University of Texas Longhorns for beating Alabama and declaring themselves back, which will eventually amount to nothing, like it always does.
hang on. I've actually got to run and go do something real quick.
Okay.
Can I be back in like 5-10 minutes?
Oh my gosh,
Do
yes, I
you
guess
or do you
so.
want to restart it?
No, we don't have to restart it. I'll just keep your screen up
Okay.
if that's possible. That way,
Okay.
people know that at least you're here.
Okay. I'll be right back.
All right, Mike's gonna go take care of some stuff. So for 5 to 10 minutes, and hey, for 5 to 10 minutes, I could talk about our sponsor, Bluegrass Beverages, as everybody's filtering in a little bit slower than normal, which is okay. Mike will be back in 5 to 10 minutes. I want to talk about first off, paulkarski.com. We got Mike. He's written an article today that is out on Wednesday, so make sure you go read that. Reviewing the film around the Saints loss or Saints win against the Titans. Stackingtheinbox.com has many articles out, lots of information, and we had a fantastic, for what it's worth, a fantastic game day chat for all the paid subscribers to stackingtheinbox.com. I went live. We talked about the game. There was quite a few of us in there kind of consoling each other through the miserable game that it was. And then, of course, Bluegrass Beverages, Hendersonville, Tennessee, celebrating 50 years of fantastic service. And let me tell you just how fantastic that service is. Stoney lives out in Mount Juliet, and he drove all the way to Hendersonville this past weekend just to shop at Bluegrass because they have some of the best selection of beers that you can find anywhere in Middle Tennessee. And that's a testament, in my opinion, a testament to the quality products that they serve there. Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Worth the drive no matter where you're at. And hey, guess what? If you're in Nashville, there is a sister store, Sinker's Beverages, in East Nashville. But Bluegrass is our sponsor, 555 East Main Street, Hendersonville, Tennessee. They have a fantastic event coming up that's free. It is the weekend of the 28th, and it is a bourbon and tequila tasting. It's free. You get free bourbon, free tequila, multiple different kinds to come in and get samples of. Why not pop in Bluegrass Beverages? Me and Braden we're efforting us to be there that weekend. We're trying to clear our schedules for us to be there to broadcast there, just like what me and Stoney did for their beer tasting or their 50th anniversary party, I guess just say. So Bluegrass Beverages, Hendersonville, Tennessee, coming up September 28th. They got all kinds of cool events. They'll have a TV there so you won't miss any football games. Nice big TV. It's massive. It's huge. And they'll have the games on, the game of the week for SEC. Don't miss it. Oh, man. Let me just tell you. This Titans game, it's a mess. And it was a mess pretty much only in one spot. But there's a lot to talk about that is positive, and we do have some negative things to talk about. And when Mike gets in here, we're going to have a little bit of gloating. I've already wished his University of Texas Longhorns a nice victory because I am a gracious loser, okay? So we don't have to worry about that as far as, that taking up too much of our time. But as Mike is still efforting to get back, I want to bring up some of the stuff that I talked about in my article, 48 Hours Later, Analyzing the Titans Loss to the Saints, stackinginbox.com. And we'll also talk about some of the stuff brought up in paulkoharski.com and Mike's article, which I am pulling up right now because I didn't even see it get tweeted or X'd. The worst and best Titans from the Saints loss started with Ryan Tannehill and Arden Key. Tell you pretty much who do you think is going to be the best and who do you think is going to be the worst out of those two. But there's been a lot of narratives surrounding Ryan Tannehill, the Tennessee Titans, a lot of takes. I mean, there was I think it was the guy from Jersey who is just, his timeline's littered with bad takes. I think he's the one that said that the Titans should trade Tannehill and a 5th-round pick to the Jets just to get rid of Ryan Tannehill. Pretty stupid. There's people that think that the Jets, and listen, I'm all for the talk of the Jets trading for Ryan Tannehill, but there's people that think that the Jets will trade for Ryan Tannehill. As Mike comes in, we'll get started. I've already congratulated you on your little Texas win.
Little Texas win. Hey.
Are we really going to have to dive into this? Because last year when the Alabama guys, I didn't make a big stink of it. So, you know.
Well, I mean, it's a little bigger deal when it's Texas that beats Alabama than Alabama beating Texas right now.
Oh, okay. Well,
right? I mean,
is it?
Hey, Texas has been down for a decade and a half, and this is a huge win.
It's a big win for you guys, and I agree, but I don't think it's something that like you need to be like, oh, you know, we got to spend like 10 minutes on it.
No, we don't have to spend 10 minutes on it, but I do have to give you some shit because Texas did go into Tuscaloosa and beat that ass. So
yeah, you know, it is what it is. Pretty much, Alabama beat themselves. I was resigned when I didn't see like Nick Saban for the entire first half, like no shots of Nick Saban. I got this weird feeling. It's like, okay, Alabama's losing this game, and they just know it. They just somehow know that Alabama's losing this game, and they're just like, we're not going to show up.
I thought going into it, I thought Texas had a pretty good chance to win. I will say the closer we got to kickoff, the more nervous I got that we were just going to like have the rug pulled out from under us one more time, because that's all that's happened for the past decade. But I do think that this Texas team is super talented and will be in the mix all season. Although there are some good Big 12 teams.
I will say this: you won that, but I think I've already won and declared the winner of Nate Davis versus Daniel Brunskill.
Oh, that's way too early.
Is it? I mean, because Nate Davis has got a pretty big lead.
And let me say this: I never said that he'd be better. That we're not comparing him to 2023 Nate Davis. We're comparing him to years past Nate Davis. Nate Davis with the Titans.
Yeah, this was a great game from Daniel Brunskill. Daniel Brunskill is 10 times. I know that No Flag Films put a little like it's a Cheeto thing in there, like Cheeto holding a door open. But you know he's got bad taste. He thinks Monty Rice is good. So what does he know?
I don't know. I watched the All 22 last night. I thought Brunskill was okay. I thought among the offensive linemen he was probably second worst, behind the obvious first worst.
Yeah. The thing is that like the Tennessee. Let's just start and dive into the Tennessee Titans offensive line because I think because I don't think you could talk about Ryan Tannehill without talking about the offensive line first. The offensive line did what NFL teams do. I don't think it was the 5th best or top 11 like PFF and pass block win rate has them.
Yeah.
But to me, they looked like by the entire game, they started out really rough, but at the end of the entire game, they were an NFL average offensive line. And Ryan Tannehill, who is a 10-year veteran, I think more than that, but I know he has 10 seasons of active gameplay, if I'm not mistaken. But he shouldn't be seeing ghosts. Like, I don't feel like when you're in that long, you should be constantly seeing ghosts all the way through a game. And I think they did their job. And I think they did their job better than outside of the Giants game last year than any iteration of the Titans offensive line in 2022. And that's what you needed, right? It's what we all talked about. is that all you need this offensive line to be is not the worst. And in fact, they were better than not the worst. They were, in my opinion, an average offensive line in the NFL. I mean, you have takes coming out that even Patrick Mahomes would see ghosts if he was behind this line. No,
No, that's not
no.
accurate.
First off, it would be an entirely different game if Patrick Mahomes is your quarterback. The reason why the Titans lost is not because of the offensive line. It's not because people think that Tim Kelly is Todd Downing. It's not because of the wide receivers.
Are people
It is.
really blaming this game on the offensive line?
Oh yeah. Oh well. I mean, you
Look,
saw
I
the
mean,
takes
look,
that day. The
Andre
day everybody.
Dillard was terrible in this game. Like,
But he settled down,
well,
right? I mean, to
kinda.
a
He was better in
he
the
wasn't
second half
Dennis
than he was
Daly,
the
right?
first.
Like,
Well, here's what Dennis Daly, his worst game last season, he allowed 6 pressures. Andre Dillard allowed 6 pressures on
but how many of
Sunday.
those were
So,
sacks for Dennis Daly? You get what I'm saying? Like, I think
well,
pressures are a little different here
as
and
far
there.
as his worst game, Dennis Daly had a 3-sack game against the Eagles, I think it was. He had another 2-sack game, but he didn't have another game that was more than 1 sack, I don't think. So, for as bad as Dennis Daly was, Dillard was like, this performance by Dillard would have been fit right in with all the Dennis Daly performances last year, which is not good news for the Titans. I guess the good news is they can get out of this contract after after this season
But he
if
got better as the
things
game went
continue to go
on.
this way. He was better, and apparently there was an issue with some of his pass sets. That they thought he was just too soft on his pass sets in the first half, and that got corrected at halftime, and he played better in the second. And I agree that he played better in the second half, but it's not an encouraging because it's not like, I mean, look, Carl Granderson is a good player. He's not a great pass rusher. He's going to see Joey Bosa this week. He's going to see Myles Garrett next week. He's going to see Trey Hendrickson in 2 weeks. It could get worse for Andre Dillard because, look, all those guys are speed to power rushers, and that is what he really struggled with against Granderson, and teams will know that. The book will be out on that. He will see speed to power constantly until he proves that he can anchor against it. So I just think it was an alarming performance by Dillard, but the rest of the offensive line and the offensive line as a whole, I didn't think was terrible.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing, right? Like, I've heard Jared Stillman yesterday. He about made me want to drive my car up to the studio and beat his fucking ass and shake him because he put like Ryan Tannehill at like number 5 on list of people to blame for the offensive woes. He blamed the offensive line, Mike Vrabel, the pass catchers, Rand Carthon, even before you got to Ryan Tannehill. And I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. Of course, he says, Jared's film room. That's what he says was in there. You put Tim Kelly, up on that list. Like, everybody before Ryan Tannehill, apparently it's just not Ryan Tannehill's fault in Jared Stillman's head, which is the most asinine take, because when Mike Vrabel came out and said on Sunday in this press conference and said that it's not just one person, not one person's the reason that the Titans lost. I said, I understand that you don't have to, you're not supposed to throw players under the bus, but if anybody deserved to have every team bus be thrown under all 6 or 7 team buses that are leaving the stadium, it's Ryan Tannehill. And then on Monday, they go back and watch the tape overnight and everything. And then he comes back and he's saying some pretty damning things about Ryan Tannehill's like, I don't know what was wrong with him, but he's got to be better.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows now it was one person. And Ryan Tannehill is the sole reason, in my opinion, that they lost because of all the points he left on the field. You can talk about Rashid Shaheed's touchdown. You can talk about the coverage breakdowns all you want. But at the end of the day, not converting field goal trips into red zone or red zone trips from field goals to touchdowns, and not converting on 3 wide open passes that could have led to touchdowns, and then an additional one to Chig on the Chris Moore interception. That's a lot of points on the field. And you can't blame the offensive coordinator because he schemed people open.
Yeah,
And
I mean, some of those were extremely well schemed plays
yeah,
that got players wide open, and that is what you want your offensive coordinator to do. And you've just got to hit them like the wheel route. And I thought it was clear, on the interception that he threw to Moore, like you mentioned, Chig was open on that play. Chig
and
was
it
the
wasn't a
correct read on that
situation
play.
where, like, the ball's already left his hands or he's
Yeah,
already in his windup,
correct.
because even Jason McCourty said it on the broadcast, which, by the way, I want that broadcast team for every Titans game.
Yeah,
Don't
they were
give us
really good.
anybody else except for those guys, because they were fan-freaking-tastic.
Yeah.
Ross Tucker getting so excited on Chris Hubbard's pancake block, and like just you can hear the pure joy in him. Like, that's personality. I freaking loved him. I thought it was one of the best crews that I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I mean, you had that play that should have been not maybe it wouldn't have been a touchdown if he
Yes,
hits
I
Chig,
kind of
but
put
it's
that as like a
probably in the
hat.
10. It's
Yeah,
probably inside the 10-yard line. At least they're getting points instead of a turnover, right? Like that's
right.
at least 3 points left on the board. The third interception, if you look now, and PK asked Vrabel about this and Tannehill about this today. If you look at the backside of that play, Traylon Burks breaks wide open. The Saints totally busted the coverage. Nobody covered Burks. Burks is screaming downfield. Like, I mean, would have been an 84-yard touchdown if he worked the backside of that play. Now, I don't blame Tannehill for not working the backside of that play. He got a look that dictated one-on-one coverage with DeAndre Hopkins against Paulson Adebo, and you're going to take that matchup when you get it, and you want him to take that matchup when he gets it. It was a poor throw, and just a bad decision of where to put the ball. But I don't totally mind it, and that's what Vrabel said too, is that he didn't mind the decision, but it was a bad throw. But again, like if you want to talk about Tim Kelly, that's a play that was schemed up a wide open wide receiver. And then you also had a missed wheel route to NWI that was open on that little play action boot from
At the very
shotgun
beginning of the game.
at the very beginning of the game. NWI was wide open. He had time to throw it. I know Cameron Jordan was out there, but he was not closing on him at the point that he would have released the ball to hit NWI. And look, it was going to be a walk-in touchdown, easy touchdown by NFL standards. The trick play, the reverse pass to Chig, again, wide open, has the linebacker beat by like 2 or 3 yards, is going to walk in for a touchdown if that ball hits him in stride and he just overthrows him. And then you had the wheel route to Spears, where again, wide open, like he was 10 yards clear of the nearest Saints defender. And with him in open space, his ability, he's going to score on that play. Like he just is. So any of those plays gets executed correctly, and the Titans win the game. And yes, we're talking about it was a bad performance by Tannehill, but it's a win, like, right? So that's how close this thing was. That's how many opportunities that were just like sitting there.
I mean, you had a
Waiting to be
chance to
taken.
really, because when you talk about some of those, they settle for field goals, right? So
Yeah.
you're picking up technically, I guess you would look at it as like 6 points per play that he missed out on, and adding that to, I don't know if my math's right on that, but anyway, you're talking about many swings in favor of the offense that
Oh,
would
yeah.
have probably got you to the vaunted 30 points needed to win games. Like, we haven't seen this team score 30 points since when? Like 2021? Is
Yeah,
that
it was the
right?
last game of no, it was the last game of the 2021 season
Yeah.
against the
So like
Texans.
we our offensive coordinator for that we saw on that field, like our eyes saw a scheme that would work, and that all it needed was a quarterback that had like any semblance of being an average quarterback. Like it's such an outlier though, but like there's also, I don't know about you, Mike. I got conflicting feelings about Ryan Tannehill right now.
Yeah,
I have my head, right? The logic behind it, right? The logic tells me, the numbers tell me, the analytics tell me this is the outlier game for Ryan Tannehill. Everything you look at, every kind of anything you can find that measures quarterbacks makes you know, or lets you know, that this is an outlier, the outlier game. But there's also something when I'm watching him throw the ball and I'm watching him not be able to hit the easy stuff, and he's creating his own pressure, and he's like leaving a clean pocket, then running into an offensive lineman, and then he's getting, hit around, or he's messed up. All this stuff. And then the speed at which the ball is leaving his hand and making it to the receiver, it's causing this gut feeling. And I had this gut feeling about Russell Wilson a few years ago. And now Ryan Tannehill and Russell Wilson are the same age, but so Ryan Tannehill is kind of able to move away and avoid old man father time. But I just have this feeling in my gut that he may not be that bad any more games, but I think us hoping that we would see something closer. I think we're going to see roughly 2021 Ryan Tannehill. That's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah,
I think he's getting. I think it's it. I think Father Time is hovering over him with his Father Time's old crusty yellow fingernails and all this stuff, beard tickling his ear.
The thing that I struggle with though on this whole thing with Tannehill is that it's easily his worst game he's played as a Titan. And I know that the Bengals game and all that stuff, it wasn't great, but it wasn't nearly as bad as this. The Bengals game, some of those interceptions were just, either great plays by the defense or just, bad luck. Honestly, with Tannehill, all three of these were bad throws and or bad decisions from Ryan Tannehill. And frankly, he could have thrown a couple more interceptions if Saints defenders had caught the ball. So, or if what Titans wide receivers hadn't done a good job of turning into defensive backs for him. So it was a terrible game. It is by far his worst game to me. And I do think there is some concern, especially the fact that a lot of those passes were underthrown and not, just not reaching where they needed to get to. The Moore ball was underthrown. The ball to the first one to Hopkins was underthrown, and then the third one to Hopkins looked like it was either underthrown or a back shoulder that he just missed on. So the fact that they're all underthrown is a little concerning, but the honest opinion that I have is that we did not see warning. I would have thought if Tannehill was just shot, his arm was done, and it was the end of the line here, I thought we would have seen warnings of this from training camp. And nobody saw warnings of this from training camp. And everyone felt like Tannehill had a really good training camp, honestly. And there weren't a ton of underthrown interceptions in camp, which you would expect to see if this was just he doesn't have the zip anymore. I think my gut tells me that just chalk it up as a bad day. And look, the misreads and missing, open potential touchdowns and things like that, holding onto the ball too long, all that stuff. I don't think you can put that on age, because that's not something that should diminish unless his eyesight's going bad or something like that. But I think it's, you just got to chalk it up as a bad game and see what he looks like next week. And I expect him to be better next week. He may not be incredible. He might not put up 380 yards and 4 touchdowns or anything like that, but I think he's going to be a lot better this week. And I guess I'm not quite ready to jump on the, no, Tannehill is washed, he's done, it's over train after week 1, right? I can't get on that train right now. I might join you in 3 or 4 weeks, but.
Well, I just, it pops into my head. It's it just happens. Sometimes there's no warning that it's coming down the pipe. It just happens. That's kind of what I wonder. Maybe did he get hit and then his arm was really sore after one of the hits that he took, and he just didn't have it, or if there's just all hesitation and he wasn't trusting what he was seeing. I don't know, but for Manning, it just came out of nowhere. For Peyton Manning. So, and I know Wilson, it was a gradual decline in some cases. But sometimes it just comes for your ass. It's just very sudden.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just not I think I need to see it a couple more games before I'm sure that it's done, right?
Yeah.
Um, and while we're here on the, we touched on the play calling a little bit and Tim Kelly. I thought it was pretty interesting what the offense looked like in general. Like we'll talk about the Tajay Spears and Derrick Henry snap counts and splits and stuff like that, but they ran a ton of empty in this game, which I really liked because I think that gives the quarterback a lot of options, a lot of it really stresses a defense because you've got to cover 5 eligible wide receivers all lined up, all able to attack various areas of the field, lets you get into a lot of different things. So, empty is something that we didn't really see a ton in previous years from the Titans. So I think that's kind of a new thing. But they ran at least 10 snaps of empty, which was a ton in this game. Which I'm fascinated to see what that looks like moving forward, as well as some of the two back stuff and things like that. But I
I
thought it
don't
was
I don't want to see Tajay Spears block for Derrick Henry ever again.
no.
No, that was a stupid play.
Nah, I
Why
don't. I
did they
didn't
have to
mind it.
have one stupid play every time?
I didn't totally mind it. I thought Spears got a good enough block on the edge there. And they gained a few yards out of that play. It wasn't a huge play or anything, but I do think having both backs on the field. I'm not crazy about all the Wildcat stuff, honestly. I mean, it's okay situationally here and there, and I guess they only ran one play of it. But uh, Henry and Spears on the field together, I do think is
I
interesting
do like
because
that.
they're very comfortable with Spears as like a receiver. They
Yeah.
certainly are willing to put him out there in the slot and let him run real routes. So that's an interesting
And
combination because
man,
there's a
that
lot he
was
can
that
do.
was so close to being that catch where it just kind of like it was just maybe even centimeters away from his hands where
Yeah, that's another
he went
one.
up and got it. Like I don't think that was I think that's the right ball placement. I just think that like in that situation, I think you got to remember that your guy's a little short. The guy that you're having run that route is a little short, and if it's perfectly covered, you may he can't grow. So
Yeah.
but if you put it down any lower, it's probably tipped
Which
by the
way, which
defense.
one? The back shoulder throw towards the front corner,
It's
front
at the very
pylon of the end
beginning of the
zone.
game, that one.
I see. I thought it was he should have hit that. Like it was open enough. Like Spears, I thought it was clear that they were trying to run something to the back shoulder there. And I thought Tannehill just kind of overthrew that one a little bit. So I thought that was honestly, that's another touchdown that probably should have been had. Because if he puts that ball where Spears can make a play on it, that's a touchdown. Because Spears, it wasn't like he was wide open, but leverage and everything like that, like that's a play you can make. And they had the right idea, just didn't execute it.
Well, let's talk about the run game situation and stuff like that. We're talking about 19 run plays. Both Andre Dillard and Aaron Brewer made it in run block win rate, top 10 for their tackles and interior offensive linemen in the NFL last week. They had 16 wins. Each had 16 wins out of 19 run plays, so pretty good for them. It looked better. The run blocking looked better. Derrick Henry looked like shades of old Derrick Henry, and he was putting together easily, in my opinion, his best week one performance that he's had since becoming a starter for the Tennessee Titans. Usually he's terribly inefficient, and he was really efficient. And the Saints, I guess the game plan for the Saints was to play to their strength of the pass defense. This felt very, I think it was Eldon English on Twitter or on X. But I was thinking the same thing. This felt very much like that Panthers, Buccaneers back-to-back Arthur Smith games where like you're attacking the best pass defense by passing and attacking the best run defense by running. Like you should have swapped those. And it felt like they kind of moved away from Derrick Henry a little too quick in such a close game. But also they did something that everybody kind of wanted all offseason and for the past few years. They passed a lot.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it would have worked. Again, Ryan Tannehill. But there's something to be said about in-game adjustments during the game. And at some point, keeping Derrick Henry off the field as much as they did, not necessarily you have to use Derrick Henry, but keeping him off the field as much as you did made it really almost predictable for the most part, in my opinion, that like if he's on the field, it's likely a run. If he's off the field, it's likely a pass. They need to keep him on the field, not necessarily hand the ball off to him a little bit more. But I was a little shocked, but also I'm not too terribly upset. Does that make sense? Like I'm surprised about his usage, but I'm not really upset that he wasn't used as much.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with that. Just, and look, they were about 50-50 run pass split when he was on the field. I think he had 16. They ran the ball 16 times with Henry on the field out of his 30 snaps. So 14 passes, 16 runs. That's about 50-50. So I don't think it was like a huge tell or tendency for the Saints to pick up on it. Like, oh, Derrick Henry's in. They're for sure running the ball. I don't think has anything to do with it. I think the biggest concern that I've got is just, are you making your best use out of your, most talented player still on offense or best player still on offense? Because I do think Henry still is their best offensive player. And he was great. Like he was great early in the game. I thought he was running with power and decisive and, pushing the pile, doing all that. He had the vicious stiff arm of Marcus May. So he looked good to me. He looked like midseason form, Derrick Henry. Right out of the gate. So I am surprised that they just didn't find a way to get him the ball more in a game where, I mean, they were up most of this game.
It feels like a game that like was built for Derrick Henry, right? I mean, like in the past, this would have been you predicted, I believe, 1916, right? At one point, I was like, okay, this is getting very close to that's going to be this score.
Yeah.
And it felt like that's the perfect time to start leaning on Henry. And it just, I don't understand. I'm very conflicted. Like this game left me so conflicted. Like I'm battling week one is a liar with what you see on the field and what you see in the stats. I'm conflicted about Henry's usage because I'm glad that he's not having to shoulder the burden. It made him look very fresh throughout the entire game. But then when you need him the most, a player, and to lean on him the most, he was nowhere to really be found, and he was not leaned on enough. And so, like, I'm left conflicted with, I like the philosophy, but I don't like the results. Almost like a good process, bad result kind of deal.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think, and I do think it's important what you said. Like, how many times have we begged for this team to progress and turn into more of a balanced attack? And look, they definitely did that in this game. They were throwing the ball around, they were attacking, which I liked. I mean, it would be just disingenuous to just sit here and play the results and say, well, because it didn't work, I don't like it. When I've been asking for it for 4 years, right? But it's it's something to watch moving forward. But look, Spears is going to be their third down back, and like when they're in obvious passing situations, Spears is going to be on the field over Henry, and he should be because he's a better pass catcher. He's more of a weapon in that phase of the game.
Very good pass blocker, by the way. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but we noticed it at the Senior Bowl. Me and Stoney did. He was really good in the one-on-ones versus the linebacker drill that they would run. Linebacker, and it's made to really benefit the linebacker in those situations, and he won about 90% of the time, and he was chipping and taking on guys way bigger than him in the pass blocking game. I have to say, like, I know everybody was real down on that draft pick except for me and Stoney, but like, and everybody thought he was, handicapped in a wheelchair and all that stuff, and they'd have to build a ramp at St. Thomas Sports Park so he could get up in there. But I'm just always impressed by, even though that he wasn't able to make a play. I mean, he did have a really good run where he's like, it took like 5 people to tackle him and he was dodging people. But like pass blocking, pass catching, route running ability, and he can be an actual running back. I mean, he's a total package running back that the Tennessee Titans thought that Dion Lewis was, and never. He reminds me a lot more of DeMarco Murray as far as what he's able to do, not actually how he runs or the style of play or his size, but what he's actually able to bring to this offense. And it's great. And I think it's while the Tennessee Titans do need a deep threat, I think that when you have the quarterback that you are trying to win with, I think Spears is a better complement than getting someone like Khalif Raymond is a better complement. Like, I think he's a better talent, and I agree with you. I think that while I'm not happy that he got more snaps in a close game, I am happy to see that his usage is extremely high because that benefits Derrick Henry as the season progresses.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. And I think there's something to the idea that, hey, using Henry or using Spears now lets you use Henry as the hammer in November, December, January, as we get into the
January.
part of the season where Derrick Henry has really thrived historically. Like if he doesn't have 170 carries by that part of the season, then will he be even better? Will he be even more effective? I certainly think that's not a bad, season long look from Mike Vrabel or from, Tim Kelly. If that is the plan, I don't think that's a bad idea. If that's, we don't want to give him 30 carries in week 1 because we want to be able to give him 30 carries in week 13 and 14 and 15 and, down the stretch. So, I think it'll be interesting to track what that looks like moving forward, but I don't think it's the huge outrage that it's been made out to be by some people.
Okay, speaking of outrage, where do you land on the field goal debate?
Oh, versus what he should have done.
Yeah.
I think he probably should have taken the penalty. Obviously that's
Oh,
that.
no. The 4th and 6, man. Not that's the penalty. The 4th and 6.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a different question. Honestly, to me, I was fine with him taking the field goal there because the team had not converted third downs at a good rate all game. I think they were like 3 of 16 or something like that in this game on third downs, which is absolutely dreadful. And to put the onus back on the defense, which is the better unit and is a really good run stopping unit too, to get the ball back and give them another chance to get a field goal instead of putting all the pressure on. They've got to score a touchdown. I thought was fine. They were 2 of 12 on third down in this game. I mean, like that's part of the backdrop here, right? Like the odds of them converting that 4th and 6 to me are very low at that point in the game. So I thought it was fine. I took more of an issue with him not taking the penalty.
Well, I think, didn't he say that he should have taken the penalty?
He said he kind of debated about it back and forth, and I guess his thought was, it's a rookie kicker in his first game, and this is a long kick. Maybe he'll miss one for us here, and we don't have to take the risk of them converting and continuing the drive.
At some point, Mike Vrabel should know that Tennessee Titans get nothing in their favor. Like when you think about that, like you should be saying, "Oh, but wait, we're the Tennessee Titans, so of course this kid is going to make it."
Right, like Giorgio Tavecchio in that opener several years ago against the Raiders when like Sebastian Janikowski gets hurt right before the season. They signed this guy off the street. Everyone's like, well, Raiders aren't going to be able to kick field goals very well in this game. And then he goes like 5 for 5, including like a 56-yarder and just his nails all game. It's another instance of that basically.
Yeah, for me, it's like everybody's freaking out over 9.3%. Like, guys, it was still 33% chance that the Titans were even going to win it if they go for it. And speaking of 33%, their success rate for dropbacks were 31%. Their success rate for rushing was 33%. So the chances of them converting the 4th and 6 was even less than 34% more than likely. Like, it wasn't going to happen more. And so then I don't, to me, it's just like, if you don't convert it, well, let's say you do convert it, but you've been still piss poor in the red zone. And now what if you have to settle for the field goal anyway? Or what if you take the turnover on downs? To me, this was the prime example of why analytics is a tool and not the be all end all, because it does not account for what you are seeing in real time on the game. It does not account for game flow.
It doesn't account for the fact that Andre Dillard cannot block Carl
Yeah.
Granderson in this game.
It just looks at this. It looks at this situation. It looks at the score. It looks at the field position, and it looks at history in these same moments, which looks like to me that in these same moments, it's not very good historically all the way through, however far back they go with this win probability situation. But it looks like that most teams end up losing more often than not in the situation, which is just, I guess, a fluke situation to be down by the points that they were and with 2:20 left and all this stuff. But like, to me, it made sense. I'm just thinking there, and I'm like, all these people are upset, and I'm like, and I'm a go for it guy. Like, more often than not, I want them to go for it. But in this situation, if you are watching the entire game, this was just the right call, and it was the right call before you even look at EPA per dropback or success rate or historically. There's 0% in the red zone. But what was it? I guess they made 3 field goals off 12 offensive drives. So that would have been like 33% or 40% or something. I don't know what the percentage, but they were that. It's just better. It's not great, but it's better. They're kind of like the inverse of the defense, and we'll transition to the defense, but it's kind of like the inverse of the defense where it's like the defensive backs suck in between 0 and 80 yards, but they're really great in the red zone. And then, like, the Tennessee Titans offense was really good from 0 to 80 yards, but they suck in the red zone, which again is an outlier, by the way.
Yeah.
And
the
that's
Titans
not very common.
have been fantastic in the red zone for basically the entire Tannehill era and really the Vrabel era. So this is a huge outlier in that aspect. And also, I think there's a factor here as far as the call on fourth down, the 4th and 6, is that one thing that's not captured by EPA in the analytics here is the Saints secondary got away with murder in this game. Like almost every play, especially on third downs, they were absolutely mugging the Titans defenders or Titans receivers. It was egregious at times. Like Marshawn Lattimore obviously had a couple that were obvious. I thought the interception where Chris Moore, the ball that got tipped back by the guy who was face guarding, I thought that was clear defensive pass interference. So like they were letting them play, and to their credit, they let them play both ways too, right? Like the Titans didn't have like a crazy amount of defensive pass interference calls against them or anything like that. But that's another part of this. Like the Titans had to know they were going to get mugged on that 4th and 6 at the line of scrimmage, and holding, defensive pass interference. Those calls just weren't coming in this game. So that's got to play into it too. And also, I think that contributed to the pressure and the sacks and things like that throughout this game, because Tannehill did hold the ball for forever at times because he was misreading and missing open guys. But there was also other plays where he was holding the ball because nobody was open, because the Saints defenders just grabbed all the Titans receivers at the line of scrimmage, basically. I mean, like, Lattimore was the biggest offender, but there was another play where it was in the red zone, actually, and Treylon Burks, they were running a concept that actually was a great concept for the defense that was called. The Saints were in cover 2. The Titans were running a play concept that basically had DeAndre Hopkins running a post on the backside. Treylon Burks was releasing up the seam through the center, and then I think it was either Okonkwo or Nick Westbrook-Akina, I can't remember who it was on the front side, that was running a corner route. So basically they were getting 3 vertical receivers into a space where you had 2 deep safeties. So somebody was going to be left without a safety over the top of them in a one-on-one. Well, that person was going to be Treylon Burks, and he was going to be one-on-one against Demario Davis, which is a huge matchup advantage for the Titans. But the defensive end was split out over Burks, and I mean, literally just grabs him by the shirt and holds him for the first like 4 or 5 steps of the route. He doesn't even get past Demario Davis before Tannehill has to get rid of it. So it's stuff like that played into the pressure and the holding the ball and all that stuff as well. But yeah, I just think that's worth mentioning with that fourth down play and also just with the offensive performance in general.
Well, let's switch gears to the defense here. Aziz Al-Shair had a really good game. His replacement, or he's replacing David Long, who only played 17 snaps against the Chargers, which was
Super
very
weird.
odd.
Yeah.
Arden Key was the best performance by an edge rusher in a long time that's not named Harold Landry. Like, I feel like that's better than anything Bud Dupree or Jadeveon Clowney put on the field. He was everywhere, and the ref screwed him out of some extra stats on there. Danico Autry was amazing. I mean, the defensive line, Tier Tart was a menace.
Yeah.
Everything about
really
the defensive line in the front seven, outside of maybe Harold
Landry
Landry's just not there yet, but
Yeah.
that's okay. He walked away unscathed, right? No, he's not on the injury. Well, he may be on the injury report, but it's because they may just be resting him or something.
And he had an abdomen issue as well coming into this game, so I don't know if maybe he was hampered by that a little bit. He definitely did not look like himself as far as his explosiveness and ability to move,
which was expected, right?
Like, yeah, it's definitely expected coming off of the ACL. But I think there was some hope that like he was going to be right back to top form because he'd had such a good camp and all the reports were so glowing about him and his return from ACL. But yeah, he did not look like himself in that game. And it could be the abdomen mixed in with the ACL stuff, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he looks like moving forward.
I thought Shane Bowen did a good job. I mean, like, this is technically the first real. I thought Shane Bowen, without training wheels, did a really great job. I guess you could say, like, without help. There's no Jim Schwartz. It seems like Mike Vrabel's not is really letting Shane Bowen go through on his own. Christian Fulton, hamstring issues. Sean Murphy-Bunting biting on some fakes. Christian Fulton also sitting on the sticks.
Wasn't very good in that game.
Yeah, also sitting on the sticks. Sean Murphy-Bunting did almost have a game-saving or game-changing fumble at the end. He punched that ball out really well, just bounced right back to Jamal Williams. Just bad luck.
Speaking of bad lucks with fumbles, that one of the sacks where Arden Key, I think it was Arden Key and Danico Autry combined on Derek Carr. He fumbled that ball too. Like, that ball came out, it just bounced right back into his where he was on the ground and could just reach out and grab it. But like, look, that ball bounces a different way. This is a totally different conversation and different game. So it's just like, yeah, there's a million things like, and this is true of most 1-point games in the NFL, but there's a million things that happen in this game that, like, hey, one break goes the other way and it's a totally different result and discussion.
So, I mean, like, the defense looks good. It looks really great for about 3.8 quarters, pretty much. I mean, up until that final drive, it looked great. Nick Folk looked great. So this kind of, I know we spent a lot of time on the offense, but I want to get into the Chargers game. And I think the defense is a good transition because you expect the offense to rebound somewhat to be able to compete. But what can this secondary do to slow down Justin Herbert? Is this going to be the theme every week? It's just that, can the corners cover just long enough for the defensive pass rush to get there? Like, is that really what it all boils down to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it basically is. I mean, because I still think the secondary is the weak point of this defense. I thought Roger McCreary was really good. I thought he played a great game in the slot. And Fulton was actually pretty good, with the exception, like, he got beat deep on that big play. Was it third down on that final drive when he gave up the deep ball to Shaheed?
I believe so.
And look, that's one of those things. It's a great call. It's smart for Fulton to be sitting on the sticks there because most of the time that's where the offense is going to try to get to on that situation where they're just trying to get a first down to basically end the game. And the Saints were smart to just take a shot and they completed a ball that, look, if Ryan Tannehill completes some of those balls that were open like that, again, it's a different conversation, but Carr did hit the pass. And I don't totally blame Fulton there. But Fulton's got to stay healthy and got to stay on the field, because when Trey Avery and Kendall Vildor came into the game, you could tell a difference. Like, it was noticeably different in coverage. And yeah, it's just going to be one of those things you have to watch, especially if Fulton can't stay healthy. Which at this point you have to kind of just pencil him in. Like, he's going to miss 4 or 5 games this year, probably with a hamstring, and I don't know that there's anything that they can do about it at this point, because look, he did yoga in Miami and like all this other stuff all off season, and apparently, like, despite all, and Mike Vrabel even said he's in great shape. He's come in really dedicated and worked really hard and all this stuff. And just, again, first game, he's coming up with a hamstring. So it's unfortunate. It's frustrating. I just don't know if there's anything anyone can do about it at this point.
Yeah, it was just like mental mistakes. That was the plague. That's what plagued this whole game, right? I mean, mental mistakes by the refs, mental mistakes by Ryan Tannehill, mental mistakes made by Christian Fulton. Just really, really weird situations just constantly. We have a question in here where would you say it was because they were gassed, the defense? Now, the defense was only on the field for 28 minutes, while the offense was on the field for longer. So the Tennessee Titans defense was not on the field that much. But do you think it's because they were gassed?
I could see maybe some of that from a pass rush standpoint, simply because Key and Autry, did play a lot of snaps, and towards the end of the game, it did feel like maybe they were, no longer throwing their fastball, from a pass rush standpoint. But I don't know if I would say it was like a situation where the offense just hung them out to dry all game, and they were, on the field for, 80, 90 snaps or whatever. I don't know what the actual snap count ended up
I think it would have been around
being.
64, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a situation like that, in this instance, but.
So what
Yeah,
can
65 snaps.
yes,
So
I
it's
thought it was
a
pretty close.
totally normal number.
So I look at it and I'm looking at this Chargers game. And let's just run through what we normally do when we're talking about this. Stats of the game, right? Or let's do key addition and key losses. They don't really have any key losses. Key additions would be Khalil Mack, Quentin Johnston, and Kellen Moore as their OC. Stats of the game. Herbert has had 22 games over his career with 300 plus passing yards, now 21 or 23, sorry. In a 17-14 win versus the Titans last year is the first time he threw for 300 plus yards and had 0 touchdowns. It was also the first time he posted a passer rating below 70 when throwing for 300 plus yards, which is incredible, by the way. He also posted up a 5.31 average yards per attempt, or just yards per attempt, another lowest mark with 300 plus yards, and that's 5.31 adjusted yards per attempt was the 8th worst mark in that category out of 49 games. The Tennessee Titans defense seems to show up pretty well against quote unquote top tier quarterbacks like Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, sometimes Trevor Lawrence, if you want to consider him in that category. Joe Burrows doesn't have his best games against the defense. Is this another situation where you have faith that the Tennessee Titans will be able to scheme something up against a Kellen Moore offense, because a Joe Lombardi offense may be a little bit easier to scheme up against?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a tougher test from the standpoint of, I think the Chargers are not going to have the big glaring issue that Trevor Penning was for the Saints on Sunday. Like, Trevor Penning was absolutely abused by Arden Key in this game. And obviously
I
the
think it was the
Chargers
only
have.
tackle technically worse than Andre Dillard, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's right. So I think Rashawn Slater is not going to give up 8 or 9 pressures, right? Like, he's just not. He's a really good player. It's going to be a different challenge for Key this week than it was last week. Now, on the opposite side, like, Trey Pipkins is the weak link on the Chargers offensive line at right tackle. So maybe this is a, Danico Autry and Harold Landry game if Landry's, a little bit closer to 100%, where they can get, a little bit of traction over there on the right side. But again, like, you got another team with really good pass catchers. Like, I think Olave is better than any of the receivers that the Chargers have, but Keenan Allen can still really play. Mike Williams is going to, kill you on jump balls. And then you've got, Josh Palmer and the rookie Quentin Johnston. They've got a lot of weapons. And Herbert is a better quarterback, obviously, than Derek Carr. So the secondary is going to be challenged, in part because they're not going to have Trevor Penning giving up quick pressures all the time over there on the left side. So it's going to be a very interesting game. And also the Chargers ran the ball really well against the Dolphins. Now, I don't know what the Dolphins run defense is going to end up looking like by the end of the year. I don't think the Chargers will run the ball very well against the Titans, which will make them somewhat one-dimensional because nobody runs the ball well against the Titans. But that will be the game. Will be the Titans secondary. Can they hold up enough against those talented Chargers receivers? And we'll see. Christian Fulton's hamstring needs to be, massaged and worked on all week and healthy for Sunday.
And I agree with you, because that's obviously the Chargers' key matchup to exploit, which may be the key matchup to exploit all season long for any opposing offense. But I'm not too worried about Quentin Johnston. I mean, he doesn't. Yeah. He's a rookie, and like last week, he was like 2 for 3 for 9 yards, and it wasn't. He's not being used a lot, but I don't feel like this team has any true. They don't have a Chris Olave, which I agree. Which is, to me, those are the guys. Those are the receivers that are the detriment, the kryptonite for this team. Because like Roger McCreary, Keenan Allen, Elijah Molden, you can cover him. Mike Williams is just a jump ball specialist. If you just don't let him, if you have someone that can at least keep him in check at the line of scrimmage, you're probably going to end up doing pretty well. That, to me, is kind of how I feel about this team, but it's still Justin Herbert, right? But I don't know. I don't know what to expect from a Joe Lombardi defense or offense, or sorry, a Kellen Moore offense versus a Mike Vrabel, Shane Bowen defense quite yet. So maybe they are able to exploit downfield a little bit more. But I'll say this, interior pass rush is where the Titans need to exploit again. And I think that I saw a lot of that Dolphins Chargers game where up the middle, they were just crushing Justin Herbert, like up the middle. And that's where Jeffrey Simmons and T.R. Tart lives. And I really feel like if you are able to take out the interior offensive line of this LA Chargers, you're going to be able to disrupt enough of Justin Herbert to make him, get a little skittish and start being captain check down, I feel like, or make mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think that's possible. And I also think, historically the Titans have done much better against like big physical receivers. You think about like DK Metcalf and guys like that. Those are the guys that the Titans typically don't struggle as much with compared to the guys like Chris Olave and even like Michael Thomas, who are more, quick, route guys who have the ability to separate in short areas and just get free. So I think this is a better matchup from a Titans defensive backfield standpoint, even though the quarterback's better and could potentially, pose a bigger threat that way.
I also think about this, the coaching mismatch is just out of this world. Brandon Staley is still one of the most perplexing, worst coaches ever. Yeah. He's such a fraud.
And their defense got shredded by Tua. I mean, like the crazy numbers that they put up. This would be a game where, and look, the Titans offense is way different than the Dolphins offense, obviously, but you should think that Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins, Chig Okonkwo, it's time to get those guys going in this game, and they should be able to have some luck. I mean, look, Chargers got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. You worry about those two, but And then there's Derwin James, who of course is a dynamic player, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot that scares you on that Chargers defense.
Okay, the Titans will win because, and I'll go first. The best argument for the Titans winning comes in the form of just Vrabel versus Staley, in my opinion. The Chargers should have mopped the floor with the depleted Titans team last year. They were obviously gassed and lethargic at that point in the season, and Staley just doesn't know how to properly manage a team and take advantage of stuff like that. I thought that he coached downright scared and kind of played defensive-minded football. And I think that in the end, the Chargers kind of ultimately lucked out that Tannehill got injured. And to me, it kind of feels like that luck isn't going to hold up this week. If the Titans will win, the Chargers going to charge, as I like to say when it happens. But I think that it being a home game, I don't know how much of a home field advantage it will actually end up being. But it is a home game, so no travel. They're coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, and typically that comes into effect. So the Titans will win, not really because of the maybe the players themselves or big plays or key matchups. It's just that the Titans, led by Mike Vrabel, is just a much better coach team with much more rest in their advantage.
Yeah, I think I think the reason the Titans win is going to be that Tannehill can't be as bad as he was again in week one, and the Chargers defense can be had. I think Kenneth Murray is still a really bad linebacker. They added Eric Kendricks in the offseason, but he's past his prime. I think the Titans are going to be able to run the football against this Chargers defense, and I think that'll set up the play action passing game and everything like that off. And I don't think Tannehill's going to miss every opportunity like he did in week one again. Like I think that was an outlier, anomaly, bad game. I mean, like, look, Joe Burrow looked just as bad as Tannehill in his week one game. It's possible, and look, Joe Burrow is a much better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. I'm not saying they're the same guy, but it's possible for a quarterback to have a really bad game and then still be a good quarterback or an average quarterback in Tannehill's case. So I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll have a better game, and I think the Titans offense actually is able to carry them to a win here.
The Titans will lose because Lombardi's gone. Kellen Moore's here. He should be a much better offensive coordinator than Lombardi. He may not be the greatest young mind in the NFL by any means, but I mean, anything's better than what Lombardi's filled in. And I think they showed that last week. I think Herbert will take more deep shots, and he has the personnel that can kind of do it. And the Titans do love giving up some deep shots sometimes and get caught sleeping at the wheel. And we saw it last week. On top of that, Eckler will likely eat up a bunch of chunk plays because he doesn't have to run to be effective. Eckler's effectiveness is the fact that he can catch balls and he can run routes. He can always be on the field. And I think the defense will have a tough time stopping Austin Eckler. So that's why the Titans will lose.
Yeah, I think along those same lines, I think the reason the Titans would lose would be the pass rush doesn't get home nearly as much against a better offensive line, or at least a better left tackle in Rashawn Slater, anchoring that offensive line. And the secondary continues to be the weak link of the defense and is able to be exploited by Justin Herbert and a talented Chargers passing game. So I think that would be I think if they lose, it's going to be because they give up something like 34 points, and Herbert has a big day through the air.
All right, final verdict, Mike, before we end the show. Oh, man, this is tough because this kind of feels like, I know a lot of people are talking about the Cardinals and the Seahawks games back-to-back in 2021 and all this kind of stuff. I do think Ryan Tannehill is going to be better. I'm going to chalk that up to an outlier. We'll see. But that's logic dictates is how I should act. My heart does not say that. But I don't, this to me kind of still has lingering feelings and shade of the Bills game last year, right? Like, okay, so to me, this feels more of that the Giants and the Saints games, those losses were like in the final moments and were within reach and able to be won if certain things just the Titans prevented or went their way. And then they go and get shellacked by the Bills. And I'm kind of expecting a pretty ugly loss at home. But I expect that the Titans will do just enough to make it seem that like maybe stuff is trending in the right direction for the offense, but ultimately I think the score is a mirage, and I think that the Titans lose 35-24.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna actually go the other way this week. I'm gonna say the Titans do actually end up winning this game. I still think the Chargers are a little overblown.
They typically are.
I think the Titans, really after watching the All 22, I thought I'd feel worse. I actually feel better because there's so many plays that were just left on the field. So the opportunities were there. It's not like they were just stifled all game by the Saints. It was a lot of self-inflicted wounds, which I think are fixable, right? Like I think you can fix that. So to me, I think the Titans bounce back with a win at home. And I'm going to go 27-20.
Wow. Okay. You heard it here. 27-20. Still not get to that 30 points for the Tennessee Titans.
No, I can't predict
either of our predictions, even though they should have really probably had close to 30 points, if not 30 points anyway.
They could have.
That will do it for us. Football and other F words. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. I was going to say something funny about being in Texas, but I guess there's nothing fun about being in Texas.
There's a lot of fun about being in Texas.
Shit state. It's probably what, 300 degrees there right now. We have a beautiful weather here in Tennessee.
No, it's nice. Currently. It's like 75, I think, right now. It's like,
I don't believe
we got rain this morning. So
there you go. But Mike's broadcasting from Texas. I'm broadcasting from Tennessee, which is the only reason that Texas is a state is because of the state of Tennessee. You are welcome, Mike, for your freedom to live in Texas. You are welcome without a passport. But this has been Football and Other F Words. Bluegrass Beverages is our sponsor. Read his article that's up at paulkarski.com titled The Worst and Best Titans from the Saints Loss, starting with Ryan Tannehill and Arden Key. I would assume that Ryan Tannehill is among the best and Arden Key is among the worst. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
You're going to have to click to find out.
You have to click to find out. Podcarsky.com is where you can read Mike Herndon. You can follow him on Twitter, on X, at Mike Herndon NFL. You can follow me on X, at FWordsPod, and read all the articles that we have coming out at stackinginbox.com. I'm Zach Lyons. He's Mike Herndon. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.